Hello everyone, welcome back to a new channel. Today we will dive into an important topic that affects all of us. Basically, how India plans to protect our personal data online. Students, imagine a world where your online data, like your school records, photos, or even online shopping habits, isn't safe. Scary, right? That's why we are talking about the new draft digital personal data protection rules. Okay, remember students, it's still in the draft form. Okay, तो draft है अभी एक्ट नहीं बना है. So basically this draft digital personal data protection rules aim to make the digital world safer for everyone. So let's explore this step by step. Now, what are the DPDP rules? Yes, DPDP मतलब Digital Personal Data Protection. See, the rules were introduced on January 3 following the DPDP Act 2023. Now, these rules are India's effort to safeguard our personal data online. But what does personal data mean? Students, today we will be focusing less on the quality aspect, but we'll be dealing the personal data on the things like what is our personal data, what constitutes as personal data, what are some laws that we can find in the world regarding the data protection, and how we can uh, government can make it more effective, especially for people in our country. Okay, so that's what we will be dealing with. Now, talking about the personal data. What is personal data? Students, it is any information about you, your name, address, phone number, or anything that can identify you. So anything that can identify you constitutes your personal data. So earlier, India had another set of rules called the Personal Data Protection Bill. Okay, Personal Data Protection Bill. But it was criticized for being too strict and complicated. So after nearly a decade of discussions, the government decided to start fresh. And now we have the DPDP rules. Okay, DPDP rules. So the question is, why are these rules important? See, in today's digital world, everything is connected. Your social media, school systems, and even apps you use on daily basis. This means companies collect and store a lot of information about you. But what happens if they misuse your data? This is a question, right? For example, let's imagine a situation a company could sell your data without your permission. You know, basically, whenever you use internet, you enter all kinds of details regarding you, like your shopping habits, what you like to explore, what you like to browse on internet. So, what if company is collecting all this information and it is selling to a third party without your permission? So, and secondly, hackers could also steal your information. So, the DPDP rules aim to prevent such issues and make sure companies handle your data responsibly. Okay, and some of the key features of the DPDP rules. Okay, so basically, uh, the Ministry of Electronics and Information released the draft digital personal data protection rules, and this step follows the passage of DPDP Act 2023. ओके, अब इसी के बारे में हम की फीचर्स समझते हैं, कुछ की फीचर्स. ओके, क्या क्या इसके फीचर्स हैं, हाउ इट इज गोइंग टू प्रोटेक्ट आवर पर्सनल डेटा. And let's look at the most important aspects of the DPDP rules and compare them to international laws like European Union's GDPR, General Data European Union's General Data Protection Regulation. Small kids, don't worry. You might feel that these are a bit complicated terms used by which is using, but don't worry. We'll explain it in as much in the simplest form as we can, but focus on the concept that we are discussing here. And if you still feel any if you still feel any confusion, then just go back to the start of the video. All right. So yes, we were talking about comparison between the are India's DPDP rules and international laws like European Union's General Data Protection Regulation. Students, first, whenever you visit a website, okay, whenever you visit a website, you see pop-ups asking for your consent to use, or cookies. आपने देखा होगा कि उसमें होगा कि cookies accept cookies. So basically, it's a pop-up asking for your consent to use cookies or tracking your activity. In Europe, these pop-ups have become annoying because they appear too often. And this is called consent fatigue. What is it called? Consent fatigue. India's DPDP rules are simpler. They focus on the outcome, not the process. So companies only need to provide relevant information about how they use your data, and you can decide whether to agree or not. Second, children's data protection. See, children like you are spending more time online for learning, even playing games, or even socializing, right? The DPDP rules provide stricter safeguards for children's data. For example, schools and learning apps can track your behavior, like how much time you spend studying, or how much time you're spending to help improve your performance, right? But they don't need to ask your parents for consent every single time. They don't need to do that, as long as they follow specific guidelines. So as long as they're following certain guidelines, they don't need to ask your parents for consent for every single thing that you're doing, right? So this balance between safety and usability is a smart move. Third point is over regulation. See, unlike Europe um general data protection rule, which is very detailed, and sometimes it becomes overwhelming. इतना ज़्यादा detail में हो तो overwhelming बन जाता है. India's rules are a bit flexible. They allow businesses to innovate while ensuring user protection. For example, companies don't have to notify users about every tiny detail, like where the data is stored, unless it is quite important, right? So these are the some advantages that we can see over European Union's General Data Protection Regulation. मतलब कि हमारे जो laws है वो किस तरह थोड़े यूरोपियन यूनियन के जो जनरल डेटा प्रोटेक्शन रूल है उसके कंपैरिजन में कैसे फ्लेक्सिबल हैं, और कैसे चिल्ड्रन के डेटा प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं, और हाउ दे हैव बेसिकली मेड सिंपलर रूल्स फॉर कंसेंट. पर अब कोई भी चीज परफेक्ट नहीं होती है, राइट? सो देयर आर आल्सो challenges in the DPDP rules. So these rules basically, it may seem promising. There are some issues that we need to discuss. First is data localization. अब डेटा लोकलाइजेशन का मतलब क्या होता है स्टूडेंट्स? डेटा लोकलाइजेशन मतलब स्टोरिंग डेटा विद इन द कंट्रीज बॉर्डर. है ना, कोई चीज लोकलाइज्ड कर रहे हैं मतलब हम डेटा को स्टोर कर रहे हैं इंडिया के बॉर्डर्स में. सो दिस रूल इज स्ट्रिक्टर फॉर लार्जर कंपनीज लाइक which are called significant data fiduciaries. सिग्निफिकेंट डेटा फिड्यूशरी मतलब जो बड़ी बड़ी टेक जाइंट कंपनीज होती है, जैसे गूगल हो गया, अमेजोन हो गया. स्मॉल बिजनेसेस हैव फ्यूअर रिस्ट्रिक्शन, बट हियर्स द प्रॉब्लम. Big companies might move their operations out of India, so it can affect jobs and innovation. And smaller businesses might misuse relaxed rules for unfair competition. अब दो चीजें हो सकती हैं. एक तो जो बिग कंपनीज है वो अपना ऑपरेशन आउट ऑफ इंडिया रीलोकेट कर सकते हैं. So it can affect jobs and innovation. On the other hand, smaller businesses, क्योंकि उनके पास उनके लिए rules थोड़े lenient है, so they might misuse these rules and for unfair competition. Second is cross border data transfer. India wants to restrict the flow of data to only notified countries. But what happens when companies need to work with countries that aren't on the list? So, this could create confusion and hurt global collaboration. Third point is government may have the power to demand access to business data. सो गवर्नमेंट के पास पावर होगी कि वो बिजनेस डेटा को एक्सेस कर सकता है. बट व्हाट इफ दिस इंक्लूड सेंसिटिव ट्रेड सीक्रेट्स? सो कंपनीज आर कंसर्न अबाउट हाउ सच इंफॉर्मेशन विल बी प्रोटेक्टेड. एंड लास्ट पॉइंट इज users can ask companies for information about how the data is used, but the rules actually don't clarify what happens if users misuse this right by making frequent और unreasonable request. कि बार बार भाई फालतू में unnecessary request पे request करे जा रहे कि उनका डेटा कैसे स्टोर हो रहा है. तो बिजनेस ईज ऑफ बिजनेस के सिनेरियो से पॉइंट पर्सपेक्टिव से ये जो एक कहीं ना कहीं इट कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ डाउन साइड. So what is next? DPTP rules are still evolving and public consultations will refine them further to address these gaps. तो ऑथर क्या कह रहे हैं? इस आर्टिकल के ऑथर क्या कह रहे हैं कि DPTP rules are still evolving and public consultations will refine them. जितना ज्यादा लोगों का व्यू पॉइंट कंसिडर किया जाएगा उससे ही रूल्स और ज्यादा रिफाइन होंगे. Businesses must also see compliance not as a burden but as a chance to build trust. And India must also move beyond relying solely on notice and consent mechanism. Notice and consent mechanism क्या है कि जब जैसे when you visit a mall or airport, you can't always fully read long privacy policies, right? So future law should focus on protecting your data without always requiring your explicit consent. Okay, तो ये भी एक चीज है जिसपे इंडिया को ध्यान देने की जरूरत है. Now you might be wondering, how does this affect me as a student? How it's gonna affect me? See, your school's learning apps must handle your data responsibly. So you need to consider that. And social media platforms also need to respect your privacy. You can ask your data to be corrected or deleted. क्योंकि कई बार ऐसा होता है कि कई बार हम फिट में आके कुछ अपलोड कर देते हैं एंड हम उसको डिलीट कर देते हैं. पर यू नीड टू नो, यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड वेयर इज योर डेटा बीइंग स्टोर्ड. आपका डेटा कहाँ स्टोर किया जा रहा है, वेदर यू कैन डिलीट इट ऑल टुगेदर और नॉट. So these rules aim to create a safer environment for you to learn, play, and connect. All right. So India's new data protection rules are a big step towards ensuring digital safety for everyone. While there are certain challenges, the focus on simplicity, flexibility, and user protection is actually promising. So, as technology continues to evolve, it's important to have laws that protect our rights without stifling information. So, let's hope these rules set an example for balancing security and individual freedom in the digital age. So, thank you for listening.